What's up guys, and welcome to F1 My Team, the brand new mode for F1 2020 where you can be the 11th team on the F1 grid. And in this series we are going to be creating a Honda Formula 1 team, so they're the only engine supplier without a factory team. So I thought, yeah, we'll name our team Honda. No, turns out I can't, because Honda is a censored word. If anyone has any idea why that might be, please let me know in the comments, because I'm baffled. So instead, we have gone for Team Mugen. For those that aren't aware, Mugen are a sort of modification, car modification company who are actually owned by the owner of Honda. And they supplied engines for Honda in F1 in the 1990s. So I thought that was sort of the next best thing. In terms of the driver, we are going to be going with Jenson Button, who was a big part of Honda's F1 success in the mid-2000s. And it sort of makes sense with this whole sort of driver-owner thing, him being quite experienced and also having some Japanese links. Then the first exciting part of this process is choosing your main sponsor. Now, each sponsor has different goals and different bonuses and also different weekly incomes. So you really have to be careful, especially in your first season, as to which sponsor you go for. You've got to pick someone with a realistic goal. So if one of them says, "Well, you win the championship," that's not realistic for a startup team. So yeah, you may get higher bonuses for the sort of the bigger sponsors, but I reckon, yeah, we can finish 8th or better in the Constructors' Championship. I thought, yeah, that's a realistic goal. We get a good bonus for that and a big signing bonus. So for that reason, I decided to go for Distort. Next, we get to pick a power unit. And this one's pretty obvious. With it being a Honda career mode, we're going to go for the Honda powertrain. Now, even though it's the lowest performance and durability, sort of the whole point of this career mode is, we're going in as a factory team and we get to put a lot of resource into this powertrain and hopefully make it the best out of all of them by the end. It's also quite nice that it is the cheapest one, so saves a bit of money. And finally, we get to choose our teammates. So we get a variety of F2 drivers from the 2019 season to choose from. And this is really good because we've got obviously the new driver rating system. So that sort of helps you determine which driver you might want to go for in terms of stats. But also they have different contract costs depending on their rating. So there was one man who I was immediately drawn to. You may be able to tell who it is, but yeah, it ranges from 1 million up to 2 million salary. But the man that caught my eye was Nobuharu Matsushita, a Honda-funded driver in his junior career, was the test driver for McLaren Honda in 2016, and also a very, very solid F2 driver. So it makes sense to sign him for the team, and we come in under budget. This a very exciting part, of course, choosing the livery, and we've decided to sort of pay homage to the Honda BAR years from the mid-2000s, going for white, red and gold, which also ties in it with the Mugen colours as well. Unfortunately, there are a lot of similar cars to this on the grid, which I realised when sort of looking at onboards. So it will be changed to a slightly different colour in future episodes, but the general pattern will be the same. And the team badge, we go for black, gold and red again, just sort of fit in with the theme, and again, quite similar to the Mugen logo. Finally, you get to choose your own team colours, which goes onto the HUD. The team kit and the factory are all sort of in these colours. So I decided to go for black, gold and red for this, which yeah, looks really nice on the team kit and the driver overalls, as you can see on the screen. And just quickly, this is the weekend format that we're going for. Just 25% races early on whilst we sort of try and build up our team. But yeah, going for full qualifying, and the aim early on is to be getting out of Q1. Then, once all that fun is over, we get to do an interview with Will Buxton from F1 TV and talk a little bit about our team. And depending on what we answer, I think dictates sort of the design direction of your car. So if you try and talk up your power unit, then you'll go in initially into the career mode with a few upgrades in the power unit section. So yeah, it depends on what direction you want to go in. And then we finally land in this screen, which looks very much like a sort of FIFA career mode screen with an activity timeline which you can fill with different things between race weekends. Then we look at the facilities, so you can upgrade these to make the upgrading of parts in each department cheaper. So for example, if you want to concentrate on your aerodynamics, you can reduce the number of resource points that it costs. to upgrade the aerodynamic parts by upgrading those facilities, but that costs quite a lot of money, and that is money that we don't have at this moment in time. So now we fill the activities timeline before our first race of the season, and this is really good because it can sort of impact your department morale, your second driver statistics, and it can also gain you resource points and cash depending on which activities you choose to do. So I decided to go for aero and chassis focus to start with. I think because we'd already got a bit of a head start on the powertrain due to the questions that we answered to Will Buxton. So I thought, yeah, we'll try and get that aero and chassis up, and then also do a bit of a driver training camp before the start of the season to try and get Matsushita's stats as high as possible. Then that aero and chassis training got us some resource points, which we then proceeded to spend on the chassis and the powertrain, so not actually spending anything on aero, which I'm sure the departments were very thrilled with. But yeah, that should get this Honda engine pretty much up to scratch with the others. All the off-track shenanigans are completed then, and it is time to get into our first practice session with the Honda Mugen F1 team. And we're here in Australia, of course, where the season should start, really, for our first practice session. And this game is pretty much the same in terms of practice programs as previous Codemasters titles. So you've got your track acclimatization, tyre management, fuel management, ERS management, qualifying pace, and race strategy. Now, I personally concentrated quite a lot on the race strategy, and I think it's a really good thing to just, try and keep doing. Because it, gets you acclimatized to the way that your car handles. And yeah, it's not great, our car, if I'm being brutally honest, but we did get purple on the race strategy. The one that which we were really struggling with was the qualifying pace. So we strapped the soft tyres on, drained all the fuel out, and I was just finding it so difficult on low fuel to hook it up. As we came through the final corner here, you can see we're losing a lot of time through understeer in the car, so we'll have to try and sort that out in time for qualifying. But yeah, overall not too bad. You can see you got a decent chunk of resource points, and our teammate as well also gathers resource points. I can't remember whether that was the case in previous games, but nonetheless it's a really good addition. And yeah, we got a decent chunk of resource points. Team Acclaim is a sort of thing which is implemented into my team, so yeah, that basically is a reputation which you've got to uphold, and the better you do, the more you earn. Now, those resource points that we gained in practice have allowed us to do a couple more upgrades, including a major upgrade on the powertrain. So you can see we've got chassis, powertrain, aero, and durability, which should haul us up in terms of the team performance. The morale is good in the aero and chassis department, apparently, because we did that team building activity. And yeah, hopefully the upgrades can work soon. Here it is then, the first competitive session in our car, and we're getting straight out there in Q1. Really am liking our team kit. As you can see, our mechanics moving out of the way. That's just a lovely addition to the My Team mode. But yeah, we come out of the pits straight away to try and get a lap on the board. See the sun quite low with this qualifying session being in the evening, so it's going to be difficult to sort of hit those apexes if the sun is getting in our way. But we're going to ride on board actually with ourselves for what was our fastest qualifying lap in Q1. So the aim is just to try and get obviously higher than our teammates. That's the first benchmark really. But we come out of the final corner now. Maximum fuel mix, hot lap ERS mode, and DRS open. So that's the really good thing about F1 2020. You don't have to keep fiddling around with the ERS. You can just concentrate on driving. And you can see pretty good run through turns 1 and 2. braking pretty late for turn 3. A little bit of unloading on that inside front tyre causes a bit of a lock-up. But now as we come towards the end of the first sector, we're a couple of tenths up compared to our previous best time. Currently behind Matsushita, but it's a very good first sector, which sees us over half a second quicker than our previous best time. Of course, track evolution, a very, very big thing in these early qualifying sessions, so you'd expect us to be quicker, but yeah, we're getting up to 8 tenths now, as we're really starting to get dialed in with this car. And as we come towards the end of sector 2, towards the quick left and right, we are still 7 tenths of a second up on our previous best. Not the best left-right combination there. We do lose a little bit of time, but as we come now towards the final sector, we have to take 2 bites of the cherry there on the steering as we come through the fast right-hander. Now, we've lost a couple of tenths there. We just don't quite have the confidence in the car, and we missed the apex on the penultimate corner. But as we come through the final turn, sliding through there, just like we were in the practice session, and we've lost so much time. It does get us ahead of Matsushita, but yeah, a lot more time was on the table. We went out for another lap towards the end of the session, but just ended up dumping it at the final corner once more. So yeah, really, really struggling for grip there. And yeah, we sort of trundle towards the line, not improving our time. So that leaves us in at P19. There was definitely a few extra tenths in there, but I think we would have struggled to get out of Q1. But on the plus side, we out-qualify our teammates, and now it's time for the race.
It's finally time once again to begin what promises to be another thrilling season of Formula One action. Pre-season times, subject of so much discussion in recent weeks, mean nothing now, as the cars line up to battle it out for points once again. So let's get this season underway. Welcome to the Australian Grand Prix. So here we are at Albert Park Circuit. 3.3 miles of public roads, closed for the weekend of course, make for a bumpy surface with little undulation. There are 16 corners around the lake, with the best passing opportunities coming at turn 1 and turn 3. Can Mercedes start with victory in their bid to win a 7th consecutive Constructors' title? Could Ferrari or Red Bull establish an advantage early on? And with 22 cars on the grid, how quickly can the new team find their footing? Well, it's great to be back, Anthony Davidson. We've got a lot to talk about this year.
That's right, Crofty. It felt like a long winter, but it's good to finally be back. I have to think the usual suspects will battle it out at the front, but there are always going to be some teething problems early on in the season, so whoever can keep on top of their issues will have the advantage today.
As I mentioned earlier, we're up to 11 teams this season, with a new entry run by, well, of all things, an owner-driver. That's something we haven't seen in this sport since Hector Raback over 4 decades ago. So how are they looking so far?
Ever since their participation was announced, there were questions being asked about whether an outfit like this could survive, and certainly it's proving to be a trial by fire so far. Let's hope they can continue to draw in investment and find a little more pace as well.
With the race minutes away from starting, here's what today's grid rundown looks like. Valtteri Bottas lines up on pole position, and Lewis Hamilton completes the front row. Looking down the rest of the grid, we have Leclerc, Vettel, Max Verstappen and Albon, Giovinazzi, Raikkonen, Ricciardo and Carlos Sainz, Norris, Ocon, Kevin Magnussen and Stroll, Grosjean, Perez, Daniel Kvyat and Pierre Gasly, Buchan, Matsushita, Russell and Nicholas Latifi. And now it's time to head down to the track.
Here we go then, on the formation lap for the first race of the season. It's a Mercedes 1-2, Ferrari 3 and 4, Red Bull 5 and 6, and then to the Alfa Romeos getting into the top 10, which is really good for them. But yeah, for ourselves, Mugen-Honda, 19th and 20th is all we could manage for myself and Nobuharu Matsushita. But I was pretty confident in our race pace. Of course, you remember in the practice session, we struggled with the qualifying program, but we were pretty good on the race strategy, meeting the times, meeting the goals all the time. But now we go to the 5 red lights for the first episode of this My Team career, and away we go. We get a little bit bogged down in the initial start. We don't actually use our overtake button until quite late, as we're very late on the brakes there compared to our competitors. Very lucky not to go into the back of Daniel Kvyat there, but we have made a position on Pierre Gasly as all the cars stream towards turn 3 now. And we're on the outside of Sergio Perez, and we out-brake him But you can see Daniel Kvyat going very, very slowly in front of us. But we do manage to get ahead of the Racing Point car of Perez, who's really, really struggling in these early stages. You wouldn't expect him to be down in P18. But as I mentioned earlier on in the video, the Racing Point performance not final in this build of the game that I'm playing at the moment. But yeah, we do get ahead of the Racing Point. And that's important. Up to P17, cleared 2 cars that aren't Williams, which I deem as a success. And of course, ahead of our teammate as well. And we are closing in on Daniel Kvyat. There's a big, big train of cars up ahead. A lot of cars struggling really to get out of DRS range. That's not going to help, and that's not going to keep us within DRS range of Kvyat. In fact, it's going to put us behind Perez and possibly Pierre Gasly. No, we are just going to stay ahead of Gasly into turn 3 as we get another twitch. But yeah, we got on the curbs, and I should know better, you know. Don't do it on F1 2019, and you don't do it on 2020 either. But yeah, meanwhile, slightly up the road, we've got a big battle here for, I think, P11 in this race. We've got one of the McLarens of Lando Norris, I believe, who's holding up a lot of cars. In fact, that's the battle for like P8 and P9, I believe, further up ahead. Meanwhile, we're battling for P16 with Kvyat and Perez, as Perez is slightly on to the grass there. Kvyat's going to have the inside line for the next corner, but well, we're just going to try and pick up the pieces as Kvyat gets squeezed out by Perez, and there's a tiny little gap. It's like threading the eye of a needle, and we do get ahead of the AlphaTauri and up into P17, and we've got a good little run on Perez, who didn't get the greatest run out of the previous turn, but as we go through the quick left-right chicane and towards the deep into the final sector now, we're just going to stick behind Perez for the meantime and hopefully stay within DRS range on lap 3. You can see Ocon and Carlos Sainz, by the looks of it, battling up ahead for P14, I think that is, 13th and 14th, yes it is indeed. And they are side by side through the final corner, which is going to be brilliant for us cars behind, as we are in the DRS range now of Sergio Perez on lap 5 of this Grand Prix. We're just going to take it easy through turn 1 as Sainz and Grosjean are now going side by side. So Carlos Sainz having a nightmare few corners, and it looks as if Sainz is going to be on the outside of Roman now. But we are just going to stick behind as Perez tries to get his nose in it as well. But he's caught napping, and we go down his inside at turn 4, and that is a position back. And I feel like that's justice, you know, that's the position which we lost by our own stupidity. But yeah, we get the position back on Sergio Perez, and we are back up into P16. And now we fast forward onto lap 6, and that's a reliability issue for one of the front runners. It's Alexander Albon, whose Red Bull, of course, conked out in real life, just like his teammate Max Verstappen, and it's happened in the first race of this My Team career mode. So that's going to be a free position for us, up into P15 on lap 6 of this race, as we are going to be coming into the pit window before too long, as now we round the final corner to begin lap 7, and finally we see a few cars in the pit lane, which promotes us up into P11, and there's quite a battle ensuing up ahead. So I was toying with the fact of coming into the pit lane, because I think there's going to be a lot of jostling for position and lost time up ahead by the looks of it. And it's Raikkonen who is going side by side with Esteban Ocon. Ocon's on a mission in this race by the looks of it. He's already got past Sainz, and he is now ahead of the Alfa Romeo of Kimi Raikkonen. But that has brought us right into this fight. I don't think we quite have the pace, the raw speed at least, to be keeping up with these guys. But the more they battle, the more that brings us into the frame. And now, finishing lap 7, this is our scheduled pit stop lap, I believe. But everybody else is coming in, so we are just going to put the hammer down for a lap and see what we can do. Because we've managed to get DRS on the cars behind, as Max Verstappen actually takes the opportunity to pit. And we are just ahead of Lewis Hamilton. And this is just a massive, massive push lap. You can see we've got the overtake ERS enabled for these first 2 straights. We've got the DRS, and we try and brake as late as possible for turn 3, but that's backfired a little bit by the looks of it, because we outbrake ourselves there. But yeah, it was a really, really big push lap. We had quite a lot of fuel to try and burn, and now we decide to come into the pit lane on lap 8 of 15. So less than half the race to do on the medium compound of tyres. Let's see whether the Mugen-Honda boys and girls can put together a good pit stop for ourselves. Of course, right at the end of the pit lane, with us being a brand new team. And it is a 1.9 second pit stop. Thank you very much. That will do nicely. As we disable the pit limiter, we are just behind Esteban Ocon by the looks of it, but we've got the jump on Carlos Sainz. And he was a good few positions ahead of us. He was ahead of Romain Grosjean as well. So that has really gained us a couple of positions. But looks as if Sainz on the tyres which are up to temperature has gone down our inside and seized P12. And, wow, it was a brilliant little strategy by the looks of it for ourselves. It managed to gain us 4 positions. But unfortunately, we've had to relinquish the position to Carlos Sainz, who is in a much faster McLaren, it has to be said. But he gets a little bit of a twitch there on the exit of turn 6, I believe. But, yeah, still not going too badly by the looks of it. And we're just going to try and stick with Carlos Sainz at the moment. He's on the harder compound of tyre, interestingly. So took the decision to try and burn a little bit of fuel and use some of our overtake ERS just to try and keep up with Carlos, because as soon as we fall out of that DRS, our car does not have the pace to keep up with the McLaren. But yeah, it's very, very strategic now that they've added the overtake ERS mode. Just literally the overtake button, which is of course representative of what they have in real life compared to the 5 different modes that we had to choose from before. So yeah, you can concentrate a lot more on just racing, which is I think what people tend to play the game for, and not to mess with ERS modes. So yeah, just concentrating on the racing at this point and trying to close up to Carlos Sainz. We keep our overtake button pressed through the first couple of corners, and we were really closing in on Sainz on the run down to turn 3 as we make a move to the inside, but no, we are not quite close enough. I could have made a dive, but I think it would have ended in tears, and yeah, it would have been a bit naughty of us to dive it down the inside of Sainz. Now we start lap 11, so really into the business end of this Grand Prix, the final third. And Sainz got a bit of a tank slapper on the exit of that turn. We're not quite as close as we were last lap, but I think that has given us just half a chance. But no, once again, we are just too far back. And our fuel situation is not looking pretty. You can see we're minus 0.1 of a lap because we've just been running in rich for the last 2 or 3 laps. So yeah, we had to sort of ease off just if we're to make the end of this Grand Prix, because we're not going to be making the points even if we get ahead of Sainz. But talking of positions, we nearly lost one there to Sergio Perez, caught napping, because we're now out of the DRS of the car ahead, Carlos Sainz. And Perez is darting all over the track to try and get ahead of us. Really good to see the AI taking different lines. And yeah, trying to go down the inside, around the outside. But we do manage to fend off the Racing Point car, who is looking quite racy at this stage of the race. And now we go onto the penultimate lap of the Grand Prix. Our fuel situation is looking alright, but our pace just fell off a cliff in the last few laps. And you can see we've got Perez behind us, and then Gasly looks like one of the Alfa Romeos as well behind, and one of the Haas cars. So we're really struggling for pace. And Perez trying to pounce on this penultimate lap of the Grand Prix for P13. They say it's unlucky for some, but are we going to be able to keep that lucky position, which could be crucial in the early constructors standings, as we go side by side with Sergio Perez through the high-speed chicane. But he is, of course, going to get DRS on us down this straight. We use overtake ERS, but it is not enough, and Perez goes clean around the outside of us with that Mercedes engine. And our Honda power cannot quite keep him at bay on the penultimate lap of this Australian Grand Prix. We've had plenty of battles throughout this race, and it's been a really fun one to be involved with. Great to see that our car can at least fight with the cars. As we got a little bit excited there, we pressed our DRS button, but it turned out to be the switch camera, as we had to cycle through all of them. And that was our final chance to try and get Sergio Perez, and we get an awful exit off turn 1. The rear end just getting away from us, but the AlphaTauri of Pierre Gasly fortunately isn't quite close enough to us. Of course, he has got the same engine in the back of his car as the factory Honda. But we come across the line at the end of lap 15. We managed to fend off Gasly, and all in all, I think that is a relatively successful first race in the sport. P14, pretty solid. Driver of the day as well, which is probably given because we made up so many positions, but we will definitely take that. Victory, though, went to that man Charles Leclerc, showing off the new podium celebration in F1 2020. And he's standing on the podium alongside the two Mercedes cars of Hamilton and Bottas. The Ferrari in this build is really quick. So, yeah, that'll get nerfed before too long, don't worry. And it will fit the real life performance. But yeah, early on in the season, looking pretty good for Ferrari. Although Mercedes picking up some useful points.
So then, it's time to see how this result affects the Drivers' Championship. Charles Leclerc's points today take him to the top of the championship standings. Let's focus on the driver of the day. Anthony Davidson, who do you pick?
I have to give it to Buchan. Look at where they finished compared to where they started. It's not easy to cut through the field like that in Formula 1, so it was a great effort.
It's time to see how things are shaping up in the Constructors' Championship. Ferrari take the lead at the top of the table. It's been an absolutely wild weekend of Formula 1 action. I can't wait to see what's next.
So there we go, the full race rundown. Big points for Giovinazzi in P6 with Norris, Ricciardo, Magnussen and Stroll picking up points as well. We get 14th, our teammate in 18th there, ahead of one of the AlphaTauris, in fact, of Kvyat. So yeah, showing that our car does have a little bit of pace. Matsushita 0.4 of a second slower than us on his fastest lap compared to ours. And of course, in terms of the driver's standings, exactly the same as the race results. So yeah, sitting in P14, not too bad. And Team Mugen-Honda sat in P9 in the standings. The best of the non-point scorers, which I guess we'll take. It's not terrible. But yeah, hopefully we can score some points before too long. And that is it for the first race of our F1 2020 My Team Career Mode. Make sure to drop a like if you enjoyed it. I really enjoyed recording it. And yeah, I'll be back with another video tomorrow. Hopefully I'll bring out 2 My Team videos tomorrow, but we'll have to see. And yeah, I'll catch you then. Do take care. Bye-bye.